This is the primary video for our wood sculpture this week. I have created many different kinds of sculptures over the years, and I love paper mache, and maybe we'll try that sometime together. I love wooden sculptures and assemblages, and for this week I thought we could explore some wood. And we are going to be focusing on an artist from Texas. He lives and creates in Austin, Texas, and his name is Terrell Powell. You can see that these sculptures, these examples, first of all, look like he has reclaimed or repurposed pieces from the past. He has used many different types of wood and shapes of wood to create his sculptures, and we can tell that these are horses and this is a dog. But what's so fun about this painter sculptor is that he just brings his pieces to life with painting. So these are inspired by real life, but they have this fun quality about them. We're going to use Terrell Powell, this Texas artist, as our muse this week as we explore wood. So before we start sketching, we have a lot of different pieces that are available for you to explore and engineer with. We have the balsa wood, and it's super flat. If you were to drop this into water, it would probably float. And the balsa wood comes in all thicknesses and sizes, but most of them are going to be rectangular or squarish in nature. We have a bag of dowels. So this bag is going to give you turned wood pieces that you can use for your design and ideas. And the cool thing about some of these pieces is that if you're really careful and smart about different parts, then they can work together. Not that that needed to be filled, but just being really careful about how you use these pieces to create flat wooden discs. Those are gonna probably be instrumental in what we create. Looking at maybe some of the pieces that you have before you get started, for sure. And then we have more of a wood box, and this treasure box just comes with all different types of things. Wood kind of paint pieces that look almost like feathers. A lot of different wheels that can be used. So a lot to explore and have fun with this week. And now let's get ready for our sketch. We are going to work off of some pieces that I've seen by Terrell Powell. He doesn't just do horses and dogs. He loves to create birds. And some of the different pieces that I've seen of his, he concentrates on birds quite a bit. So we're going to create a sculpture in the style of Terrell Powell. And we're going to think about the structure of a bird to create this. The only thing before we start, I want you to look at this bird. It's rounded. It's dimensional, right? Has a spherical form here, a spherical form. Let's look back at his pieces. They're flat, okay? They are rectangular in shape. You'll see that parts that he's painted are rounded, the nostrils, the eyes, some of those areas are rounded, but for the most part, he's using really straight, almost two-dimensional kind of blocks. And so that's what we're going to focus on for our piece. And I want to kind of show you where we're heading. This was created years back by an artist here who is now in Marathon High School. And you can see that this piece wasn't complete, but this is a bird. What? Yes, it is, without the beak. So this would be the tail feather. The wings would be here. The beak would have been here. But you can see how this artist has created this sculpture using basic pieces of wood to create a bird sculpture in the style of Terrell Powell. So we will come back to that in just a little bit and talk more about colors later when we get ready for our colors. But the first thing that I would like to do, using the bird, I want you to start by using a base, okay? We can see that on his pieces, he's used bases as well. His bases are not going to be as dimensional as ours, but we're gonna use a base nonetheless, okay? So our base is gonna be our foundation, and I'm going to have some height with my base because we know that most birds are not overly large. There are some in the world around us, but we know that this bird that I'm using as my muse is not going to be a large bird in the animal kingdom. So I'm going to show maybe my base, and then I'm going to almost deconstruct. I'm going to, instead of having my beautiful spherical body and head, I'm going to make that more into a square. So I'm going to have my body, and I'm going to have my head, my beak, my eye, maybe something like that for my wing. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with my legs, so I'm going to leave those how they are, and then I'm going to do my tail feather. So this is my simplified version of my bird. I know that you can draw a bird using these basic shapes. We started the summer using basic shapes, using these organic and geometric shapes. So I know that you can do this. And then I'm going to leave my legs. You know what? I'll go ahead and draw my legs, even though I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it yet. Because sometimes when you're building just really similar to building in the block center. Sometimes when you're building and creating, you have to play around with things before you know. Okay, so this is my simple sketch, my simplified sketch of this bird. And now I'm going to start coming up with some ideas on how to build this bird. So if you've been in my classroom, not just in my art room, you know that blocks are very important to what I feel like is very important for learning. So we're going to play with blocks for a little bit today, and we're going to use a principle of design that's called balance. And so balance is instrumental when you're building a structure with blocks. If I were to build a structure and I was pretending, then I know that I have to have something balanced to be able to stand, right? So when we're creating a sculpture as an artist, that follows. We have to do the same thing. We need to be able to balance this piece, or as we continue with our design and our layers, it's not going to stand. We're going to have a very difficult time. So I'm going to start with this piece as my base, even though when I look at my drawing, maybe that's not exactly what it was, but this is my idea. And then I'm going to try to figure out maybe what block should go next. I could do this one. It would not give me much room around the edges. That one is basically the same, so that's really not going to help me. Now I don't have much room here. That one could work okay. What about this one? If I were to add this block in the middle of this block, that would balance really well. And then I would still have some room to place my bird. I could actually go ahead and go on top of that if I wanted to and add this base on top. It's still balanced and it still sits or stands all by itself. Okay, so now that I have my base, notice that I'm not trying to connect these pieces yet. I'm playing around with the wood that I've been given, and I'm just trying to see how these pieces are all going to work together, because I keep looking over here at my sketch and thinking about what I'm trying to create, which is this bird sculpture. Okay, so now I've got to figure out two legs that I can balance on this wood for my bird. And the legs have to be able to sit or stand on their own. So I could use a peg like this. I've got a whole box of these pegs, and those would be really cool for legs. The only thing is that look at how small that is. You're gonna have to glue this onto another piece. Let's pretend that this is my bird body. I'm gonna have to glue that to this piece of wood in order for this sculpture to work. It could work. I could do that. I could actually glue it upside down and let it rest. But even now, watch, as I'm trying to let it go, it's not balancing. So these are gonna be really difficult. In a treasure chest grab bag, sometimes you're not really sure what you're gonna get. Okay, so let's look at this. This would also be very difficult to glue for legs. They would look awesome, right? Those would be awesome bird legs. but they're going to be really difficult to glue down. So I'm going to look for something that has a flat base and a flat base that I could place on here and that would hold my bird legs up easily. If you are starting to design your idea and you've already gotten some objects to use and you're like, oh, this is really difficult, you can go back and get more. Now, notice that whenever I put these two together and I place my bird body on top, it's automatically balancing. There's no wobbling, there's nothing that I'm having to hold. This is going to be a good structure. It's going to be balanced because it's sitting or standing by itself. So I could use these, even though they're kind of large, I could use them for my bird legs. Look at his examples. His examples have elongated legs, okay? And these are not really the shape of the animal legs at all. So if we want to use something like these, we can. If you have, if you've gotten something that is just not working for you, go back and ask one of the librarians if you can change it. Also, something like this would work. It has the flat. This is almost a cylinder. It's a cylinder that is fatter in the middle. And this is a cylinder that is fat in the middle and bottom and then smaller at the top. These are different. But look, they both stand and they would both be able to support the bird body. So this is what you're going to do. You are going to take some time with the pieces of wood that you have chosen from the wooden boxes, and you are going to try to come up with your basic bird sculpture. Find all your pieces, and if I can't, for example, find this small circle, then maybe I'm going to do that with paint. But find all of your pieces and start trying to put your sculpture together. This may take some time. Maybe you are going to work with it and you like parts that you've done, and then there are parts that you don't really like. Spend some time building and exploring with your blocks. So we've played around with our wood pieces. Maybe you have borrowed from one of your siblings' wood bags. Maybe you've had to go back to the library and get something that you feel like you needed, that you saw whenever you picked up your supplies originally. And you have made your base and you have started to balance your sculpture. Notice that I still have pieces about me. We are not even discussing how we're putting it all together just yet. But we are finding all the different parts that we need to create this bird sculpture. And we know that a sculpture is not flat. If you're looking at my drawing, this drawing's flat. We cannot walk around it. If we walked around it, we would see nothing on the other side. But a sculpture is three-dimensional. It has depth and it takes up space. So looking at this example from the high school student, we can see that this piece can be walked around, that it's going to have this side, but it's also going to be able to be seen from this and this side, and then from the front. Even though this piece is not finished, you can see that all parts are important to the design. So when we're looking at the sculpture that we're building, we know that it's going to be viewable from all sides because it has depth. So as we're building the body of the bird, we have to remember that we're not just doing one side of the bird. If this is the body and this is the wing, then I need another wing for the other side of the sculpture. If this is the head and this is the beak, and I'm going to place it down like this, even though that's not how it's going to be on my sculpture, and this is the eye, then I'm going to need something similar on the other side. Even if my eye doesn't look the same, we're going to have an eye on the other side of the bird because we know that this is a profile, but we know that on the other side of the head there is another eye. And then you have also planned details like the tail feathers coming straight up. I have my tail feathers, and sometimes you might need to use more than one piece, and I'll show you how to do that. And then I'm just going to layer this on top because I think that that is a good detail, wooden detail to the idea of making tail feather. So now that I have all my pieces to my sculpture, now I'm ready to paint. So if you did not pick up paint from the library, you're going to need to go back. Choose probably, I would say 5 colors plus black and white. And let's come back together and start our painting.